year, more and more children are placed in foster care. The state does its very best to place those children in safe and loving homes. Many of them are adopted. In order for a child to be adopted, the biological parent must sign away their rights.
Once the child is adopted, the new parents have no obligation to the biological parents. We would like to share our story of co-parenting between the adoptive parent and the biological parent for the good of the child. Growing up, I learned a lot of skills from my family.
Hey, did you finish your beer yet?
Almost, Ma.
That girl can drink most men under the table. Get my car keys. I'm sending you over to pick up my medicine. Those guys always give you a better deal than they do me.
But, Ma.
Don't talk back.
I am only 13 and I've been drinking.
I said you're going.
No.
You worthless little.
Abuse, addiction, and neglect were just a few of those skills. I was raised by a mother addicted to drugs and alcohol, and now I was using those same skills to raise my son.
But all of that was about to change. On December 23rd, 2015, I received a phone call from a terrified young man who was a friend of my son's. He was in a home with no heat and no electricity, and it was well below zero out. He was afraid of being placed in foster care with people he didn't know. So I promised him that if he came to the police with me that night, that I would do everything I could to keep him safe. So on December 24th, 2015, I became a foster mom. And for the next 2 years, we integrated him into my life.
Losing my son, the only thing in life I truly cared about, tipped me over the edge. And I coped with this the only way that I knew how. I got messed up. I did not want to feel the pain of this loss. This time I did so much heroin that I overdosed and died. When I woke up in the hospital, I was like, what had I been doing? I lost my son. Oh my God, I lost my son. It was then that I realized I had to quit running from everything. But even with my brush with death, I couldn't quit using. I knew I had to go to rehab. That's when I began my long journey to recovery. I was accepted into family drug court and I did everything the court asked me to do. But when it was time for him to come home, he didn't want to.
He had lost trust in his mother. Hey, what are you doing? Why are you hiding food under your bed? No one's going to take your things. No one is going to hurt you. I was so angry. What kind of a mother leaves her son so traumatized that he's hiding food under his bed and that he believes someone is going to break into our home and take his few belongings or hurt him? What kind of a life had he been living? I hate her. I thought she was a selfish, abusive, strung-out woman. I couldn't leave this boy with her.
I may be struggling, but what does she know about addiction? She doesn't care about him. She's just doing it for the money. She can't love him like I can. I find myself in a courtroom with legal documents in front of me, and I know what they're asking me to do. My heart felt heavy, and I felt sick. It felt as if there was no air in the courtroom. All that I wanted was for him to change his mind and come home with me. It made it easier when I saw how the foster family had accepted him as one of their own, and how happy he was with them. There was an emptiness. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to deal with it. Could I stay sober with such a traumatic life change? Without knowing what was going to happen to me, I put my son's best interests before my own, and I put pen to paper, and I signed my rights away, not knowing if I was ever going to see him again.
And that's when I saw her for the first time. The judge explained the finality of the situation to her. She seemed numb. After everything was finalized, she stood to leave the courtroom. I could see her entire body trembling as the sobs spilled out. I cannot imagine her pain. I hugged her and reassured her that I would love and care for her son. There are no words to describe how I felt in that moment. I could clearly see her, not her faults or her mistakes, but the woman who put the love of her son before her own desires.
We both loved him.
After her act of selflessness, my heart was opened to the possibility of her being in his life. Now, what role she would play, I didn't know. I wasn't even sure if she could maintain her sobriety, which was absolutely essential. But I was willing to give her a chance. She had been clean and sober for about 2 years at that point, and she had jumped through every hoop that the state had asked her to. I learned that she too had been raised under similar conditions. So how could I expect her to do better if she didn't know better? That's when I realized that this process was going to take patience with his mother as well as him. So we slowly began our co-parenting journey together, testing the waters as we went, step by step, wading ever deeper into the intersecting rivers of our lives.
I had built, and I had housed, and I had even served tea to some resentments towards her. She had everything that I ever wanted. A family that cared and communicated, financial stability, a healthy support system, and now my son was a part of her family too. I realized it was time for me to accept that my little man was not coming home. So how could we use this experience to grow as individuals, as well as parents? First, that my sobriety was absolutely necessary to be a part of our son's life. Second, her and I started talking about our resentments towards each other. Third, I started focusing on what I appreciated about her. As I continued working on my sobriety, she began to involve me more in parenting our son and treated me like family. I began to feel accepted. She even encouraged our son to see me and give me another chance. We were beginning to change.
Now, if he was grounded at my house,
Then he was grounded at mine.
if he had chores at my house,
Then he had chores at mine. Look at all of the things I was learning that normal parents do. As most young children do, he tried to pit us against each other. But we began to involve him in the decision-making process so that all of us were on the same page.
we are constantly being told to do things a certain way, the right way, the responsible way. Since when did valuing our children's opinions become less important than our own agendas? By putting our egos aside and working together, we became a stronger unit.
We are building trust. So much in our lives have changed. For example, I realized that our son, like most children do, responded well to structure, and as a result was doing better in all areas of his life. Now he talks to me about his anger and resentments, and I listen. It's not always easy, but I let him know that how he feels is valid. I have learned that the best apology is a changed behavior, and that is what I'm doing, changing my behavior. Is this a perfect process? No. Are there things that I don't like about how she parents? Sure. But now we talk about them, and our son is even involved in many of the decisions. We are moving forward together.
I too have learned so many things I couldn't have even imagined a few years ago. I know that our son could have a life with just us, as most adopted children do. But without her in his life, it just wouldn't be complete. He knew her and loved her before he ever came into my life. And that doesn't just change because you're adopted, especially at his age. I watched him with her. There's a smile there that isn't there when he's with me. A smile that's just for her. A connection that only they have. He looks like her. They have the same annoyingly loud laugh. They both love junk food, especially the sweets, and they have their own special kind of humor.
There's no denying our love. Staying sober can be hard when using is the only life that you have ever known. But I want everyone here today to know that I am taking the steps that it takes to stay sober, even when life feels like it's falling apart. Having my son involved in my life has been super helpful. I have been able to not only build an amazing, loving relationship with my son, but also with a whole new family. And in doing so, I've learned to love myself. I am learning what I want, need, and like in my own life. I'm in college. I work as a peer support specialist for the state of Idaho. And I have been in recovery for over 4 years. Woo! Yeah.
Although we started out worlds apart, two unlikely women, by being vulnerable with each other, have become more than friends. We became family. This process isn't perfect. Mistakes happen. Involving our son in the decision-making process and having him help make life choices has been an amazing learning experience. I know we stand before you today as examples of what is possible when the adopted parents find safe and healthy ways to involve the biological parent in the child's life. It can promote a healing for that child and possibly the parent that just wouldn't be possible any other way. I know that our son is moving into adulthood with a better understanding of who he is, who he was, and the man he wants to be.
We know that everyone's journey is going to be different. We hope that in sharing our story that you will find what works for you. The most important thing we have learned is,
I had to love her in order to love him.